guys, welcome back to Callie and Beans Books. I'm Brittany, and today I'm going to do my Romance-A-Thon wrap-up. So I'm going to go in order in which I read the book this month and just kind of go through what prompt it filled, the rating, and give you a little bit about the book and why I liked it, why I didn't like it. Just to start off, I read a book with a sports romance, and with that I chose Intercepted by Alexa Martin. This follows Marley as she's leaving her boyfriend of 10 years, who is an NFL wide receiver in Denver, and through a series of events she's just like, I'm done with this, I can't handle it anymore, I'm going to focus on me, focus on my career, and I'm never going to date an athlete again. Well, enter Gavin, who is a quarterback who was just traded to Denver and is kind of a one-night stand from Marley's past. And they actually rekindle a little bit, and they talk about that night and what he meant when he left and came back and she was gone and he was getting her coffee and donuts, and I thought that was so cute. And he eventually convinces her to break down that wall and let them date and just try it out and see where it goes. And through their relationship, it develops and it is wonderful. It is very healthy, I'll say. It's just, he lets her work and really focus on her instead of focus on him, which her ex didn't allow. Another part of this story that I thought was really interesting was the aspect of the NFL team's wives and girlfriends. So mostly to get into this club, you have to be a wife. However, Marley got special permission being a girlfriend of her ex because they were together so long, and he kept waiting and waiting for the right contract, right moment to get that ring to propose, and he just never did. With her starting to date Gavin, she decides, I'm still not going to go. It's like a bunch of piranhas and she just doesn't want to deal with it, and there's a couple of women in there Gavin's past that she's just not getting along with, and she just doesn't want that drama. She doesn't want it in her life. She feels she's above it. Her best friend Naomi is the wife of another player on the team, and she kind of fills her in on a lot of the dirt and a lot of the drama that's going on, and actually convinces her to go back to one of the meetings where it actually happens at her place of employment. And it, like, everything hits the fan, and she's told to leave by her boss, and she fears that she lost her job. She goes back the next day, and they just kind of hug it out, and everything is good, but she's kind of shunned to the back because now, of course, that altercation hit YouTube, so they're getting a lot of publicity because they want to meet Marley, but she's like, I don't want to deal with it. I overall just loved this. I was pleasantly surprised. I figured I'd go into it and it was going to be really cheesy. It was going to be completely off from how the NFL actually works, and it was really simple. She just kind of said that Marley doesn't really pay attention to the NFL workings except for the Denver team, which I thought was really nice. I really enjoyed this. If you're into football or sports and are looking for a new fun little romance, I would definitely recommend this one. So next I picked up a book with a dual perspective, and for that I picked up The Good Luck Charm by Helena Hunting. This follows Lila, and she is a nurse at a Minneapolis hospital, and she's finishing her shift checking charts and rounding. Figures out that the father figure in her life had a stroke. So she pretty much drops everything and runs to his room. And in this room, she finds Ethan, who is her ex-boyfriend, an ex-best friend from her childhood that she hasn't seen or spoken to in 8 years since he dumped her when he was drafted to the NHL. Now, I love how it follows both Lila and Ethan, because sometimes when you're getting just the woman's aspect of these stories, you're not seeing how the guys actually feel and what they're going through as well. And with this, we actually hear about how Ethan felt leaving Lila and not having her by his side, and the struggles that he went through as well in the last 8 years. And that's kind of one thing that I really enjoyed about this, was it wasn't just jumping right back into where they left off. Lila pretty much had Ethan win her back and kind of talk to her and be adults instead of just jumping into this teenage fantasy that they had when they were in high school. And I thought the conflict was really unique as well. It does play on the title of the book and how superstitious hockey players are. Now, if you don't follow the NHL, or if you don't follow hockey or don't really know anything about it, hockey players are very superstitious. That is one of the things that I picked up on when I started watching hockey with my fiance, was that they do things pre-game, during the game, post-game, that they think matters to their performance. And that is one thing that plays a huge role in this story. I will say one thing with this is that some of the sex scenes are pretty explicit. If you're not one that actually enjoys those kind of scenes, I would be wary going into this. If you're into those kind of scenes, then this is definitely a story for you. I just wanted to give you guys a warning that the sex scenes can be a little more explicit than others, and I was all about it. At the end, I gave The Good Luck Charm a 5 out of 5. I really enjoyed this story. So the next book I picked up was to fill my online/digital romance prompt, and that was My Favorite Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren. I gave this a 3 out of 5. In this, we follow Millie and her group of guy friends. We have Chris, Alex, Ed, and her platonic best friend, Reed. And we start off celebrating Reed's tenure. They're all professors at UC Santa Barbara. Millie's a professor in criminology, and the other guys are science. I believe neuroscience, and it's pretty intense and actually really cool. So they all decide that for the end of the year gala, the commencement gala, they're going to sign up for online dating to bring a date. And everyone's on board with it. I think the only one person that's hesitant is Alex, but he's kind of a player of the group, so he's like, I can get a date no matter what. Originally, Reed claims Millie when they're playing Monopoly, and all the guys kind of freak out like, hey, that's not fair, ah. And then Ed has the idea, let's do online dating. Well, at the end of that night, Millie has one glass too many of wine, and when Reed's starting to put dishes in his dishwasher, she's starting to kind of fantasize about him, and she's like, what is happening? So he drives her home, and she kind of pitches the idea of having a night together. And he's like, I just don't want to take advantage of you. You have been drinking. And she's like, no, I want this. And he's like, yes, I want this too. And then they wake up the next morning, and they agree to go back to being friends and continuing with the online dating pact that everyone made. So she actually helps the guys set up their online profile, like about me section. But then when she does her own, that's kind of when her personality shows that she's really closed off to people because of her past. And her mom died when she was 12, and her dad really not being there to help her and her sister express their feelings. So she bottles a lot up, and she's not a very open person. She talks about the very surface things about her life, like her job, likes, dislikes, but she doesn't really talk about who she is as a person. And that shows in her profile. And the guys kind of get on her like, you wrote these beautiful about me essays for us. Why aren't you writing something about you? And so she just kind of, as a joke, decides to create another profile. She names that one Catherine. That's her middle name. She uses a profile picture where it's a profile of her face and a little bit of her collarbone and shoulder. So you can't really see her face, but she's using a photo of herself. And she all of the facts about her and the about me is about Millie. She's just under the disguise as Catherine. And it's kind of as a, haha, I'll show you to the guys until Reed matches with her. And she does accept the profile and does send him a message, but it's full of hints that it's actually Millie. Where she goes wrong is that she doesn't actually tell Reed, hey, this is me. Hey, it's Millie. She goes along and says things as Catherine. That's where the story kind of lost me. I felt like that's too catfishy. I didn't think that was okay at all. But at the same time, she does say like, this is only going to be a couple of messages and I'm going to come clean. But then Reed starts opening up to her, and she's opening up to him in a way that she never thought they would. So Millie's falling in love with Reed in person and through Catherine, but she also doesn't realize that Reed's also having conflicts in person with Millie and online with Catherine and another woman he's chatting with. So he's confused on what he wants to do. And obviously that's what sets up the conflict. That's what the big drama is. And for a moment, I didn't think they would get past it. I really didn't. I know that most of the time romances have like a pretty quick wrap up, but they were coming to a point where I was like, there's like 20 pages left. What's happening? I actually really enjoyed how they made their relationship work and how the guys all got back to being friends and they were able to figure out their relationship, and I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed the banter between Millie and the guys with each other, and the side characters kind of saved it for me too, and I fell in love with Reed. Reed is one of the best book boyfriends I've ever read. I think he was so sweet, and I totally took his side through the entire story. I was like, this is amazing, and I really enjoyed it. I just really couldn't get past how Millie pretty much catfished her best friend. I didn't like that, and I didn't like how there were so many times where she could have been like, hey, it's me, haha, great joke, let's move on, but she didn't, and so that's kind of what ruined the book for me. The next book covered two of my prompts, one being a book with a cheesy cover and the other being a book purchased or released in 2020. So I chose Romance Book Club by Lyssa Kay Adams, and I gave this a 4 out of 5. No, this book was not released in 2020, but I purchased it in 2020. It was released in December of 2019. Close enough. So yes, I heard so many good things about this book that I was like, you know what? I'm gonna switch it up a little bit and I'm gonna grab this one, and I was not disappointed. Follow Gavin, who's a pro athlete. He's a baseball player, and he's trying to win his wife back. He figures out that she's been faking it in bed their entire marriage. They've been together for 3 years and they have twin girls. They actually got married pretty quick right after he finds out that Thea's pregnant, his wife, and they just jump right into a marriage. And at first, everything's great, and then they realize that they've changed, and after one of the biggest moments of his career, he hits a grand slam in Game 6 of the World Series. They have an amazing night in bed. However, that's when he finds out that Thea's been faking it in bed, and he reacts a little over the top. He stops speaking to her. He moves from their bedroom to the guest room, and then she says, then you can just leave, and he leaves, and his adage is she kicked him out, even though she gets going back to, well, you left me. Gavin, with the help of some of his best friends, start this romance book club, and they read romance novels to figure out what women want, what they call their love language. It's that language when the guys say something that they think is funny, and we are just like, no, that's really not funny, or they think is sexy, but we're like, no. Not at all. So that's one thing that I've actually thought was kind of fun, seeing how the guys kind of figure out their relationships by reading these novels. And one of the biggest rules is you don't talk about it. You don't admit it. This is just something that the guys do so they can help each other with their relationships. They also help Gavin with date ideas and helping win Thea back. And that brings in, or the biggest issue I had with this story was Thea in general. I'm really over women being super stubborn when it comes to trying to fix their relationships. They get an idea. Granted, I'm like this sometimes. We get an idea in our head and it's that way or the highway. Like that's what's going to happen. And it seemed very repetitive. Like there was no backing down. Thea was like, no, he can do this all he wants, but the divorce is final. Like, I'm getting a divorce. We're getting a divorce. I'm like, okay. It's like, come on. I get that you're hurt. I get that you're upset. But you also need to realize that he's trying. And that's one thing that I was just like I'm always a sucker for the idea of, well, at least they're trying. Give them another chance. And so kind of going back and forth between liking Thea and understanding Thea was one of my biggest issues with the story. Otherwise, I loved the writing style. I loved how the relationship progressed from, no, we're getting a divorce, to, okay, I can kind of see this, back to the, no, it's done, and then grand gesture, and everything is it wraps up in a nice little bow. So I will say that I really enjoyed this. I'm really happy that I actually picked it up. I look forward to the second installment of the Bromance Book Club coming out in mid-March. It's Bromance Undercover, and it follows Thea's sister and Mac, one of the two characters that were introduced in the story. So the next book I'm going to talk about fills the workplace romance prompt, and that is Ruthless by Lexi Blake. This is the first in the Lawless series, and we follow the Lawless siblings, I believe 10 years after their parents are murdered in the house fire. And since they have no other living relatives, all 4 of the siblings are split up. We have Andrew, who's the oldest, then there's Riley, Brandon, and then Mia. And we follow Riley's perspective throughout the entire story, who is now a lawyer. He went to Harvard Law School, and he's a lawyer for Drew's software company called 4L. And then part of their whole relationship, all of the siblings, they want to bring down and avenge their parents' death. And one way to do that is infiltrate a company called Stratcast, whose 2 owners were major players in their parents' death. However, one of the guys has already passed away, leaving his daughter, Ellie, in charge of the company, and Ellie's trying to buy out his business partner. They want to infiltrate the company to kind of destroy from the inside out, so their stock value plummets and that it's very cheap, and Ellie has to kind of rebuild, and that's kind of their plan on destroying the two families that kind of destroyed their family. However, what they don't anticipate is Riley falling in love with Ellie and Ellie falling in love with Riley. Ellie does hire Riley on as her lawyer to help her buy out her dad's business partner. And through a series of events, there's some other things that are unlocked and uncovered. It's kind of predictable in some of the conflicts. And it reminded me a lot of Shonda Rhimes' Scandal and How to Get Away with Murder. It seemed very familiar to me. Maybe it's just I watched those shows religiously, and there's a lot of instances where I'm like, oh, that could have been in Scandal, or that could have been in How to Get Away with Murder. And so it's just like, it didn't seem unique to me. And I think that was one thing that fell short. We also have Ellie being stubborn and not wanting to forgive Riley and kind of making things up in her head to make Riley the bad guy, even though he's trying to show, yes, I did this in a bad intentions, but know that I would give up everything to be with you, and Ellie's just not having it. We do get a nice ending. I wasn't anticipating the ending the way it happened. I was anticipating a couple of things. I did predict a majority of the big conflicts and who does what and the past and the secrets and all of that. So it felt longer than it needed to be. Overall, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I do plan on continuing reading the series just because it follows different siblings. So it's not a direct sequel. We follow, I believe, Brandon and Drew in the next one as they go after one of the other players in their parents' death. I look forward to reading that, but it's not high on my to-read list right now. So the last book I'm going to talk about fills 3 prompts. One being a book with a pink cover, the next being Enemies to Lovers trope, and the last one being the Serpent and Badger Book Club book for February, and that is Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. And I gave this a 3 out of 5. In Red, White, and Royal Blue, we follow Alex, who is the son to the first female president, and he has a hatred towards the youngest prince of England named Henry. There's a couple of things that I just don't like about this story. I'm not going to dive too deep into it though, because we will be doing our Serpent and Badger book review together for this, and I'm sure I'll bring up some points that I didn't like during that. But overall, the major issue I had was it was present tense. Basically, we're picking up in 2016 after President Obama's presidency is over, and we have the first female president, and we follow from 2016 to 2020. I get wanting to escape reality. Not everyone liked the outcome of the 2016 election, and I understand that. It's just, it didn't do it for me. I didn't like it at all. I felt like if it was past tense or maybe set in the future, that would have been great. But the fact that it's supposed to be right now just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Another thing I didn't really like was how quick it turned from haters to lovers. I felt like we went from him absolutely hating Henry to him falling in love with Henry in like a chapter. Granted, these are long chapters, but it felt forced, it felt rushed, and that leads into the pacing part of this story that I didn't like either. It felt very rushed at some points, but then drawn out in others. So the timeline's like all over the place. I don't know where we are. If it wasn't for the multimedia in here where they're exchanging emails and texts and with dates, Alex giving us timeline on where they are with the campaign, I would have no idea how much time has passed. Like there are times where it's all in one weekend, and then there's times where there's a month in between things, and I'm like, I don't get it. Another thing that I kind of want to talk about now that I will probably bring up with Serpent and Badger as well, it's the sex scenes. Now, I understand as a woman, I have no idea what they're going through. But the sex scenes just fell flat. It just didn't seem like the author took enough time to write them. They felt like an afterthought. It was just all over the place, and I get it. Sex can be all over the place sometimes. You're going from one thing and doing another, and it's all over, and I get it. It just didn't feel genuine. It felt forced. I want to love this story because everyone loves this story. But at the same time, that there's just some aspects that I couldn't get past. What saved it for me was the banter between Alex and Henry and then their friends. I really enjoyed his relationship with his sister and how he keeps his relationship with his mom his dad and his stepdad. I think that was really nice. I'm sure we'll get more in depth with it during our Serpent and Badger review, so be sure to look out for that. That'll probably be coming out middle of the month. I'm not exactly sure, so just kind of keep an eye out for that. So the last prompt that I've kind of been saving is one that I changed. So originally the 10th prompt was a book by your favorite romance author. And going into this Romance-A-Thon, that was Christina Lauren. Well, at the end of it, I just kind of felt like, they're not really my favorite anymore. I've kind of felt more drawn to other writing styles. So I changed the prompt to a book by a new to you author. I actually had a tie between Alexa Martin and Helena Hunting. I loved their writing styles. I loved how they were able to write these characters and make it seem so genuine, and even though they're in these spotlights with it being the NFL and the NHL, they were still able to make it real. And I really enjoyed that. And the conflicts weren't over the top and the endings weren't rushed. There was just so many things that I loved about their writing styles that made it seem like I could pick up more of their books. All right, guys, that's it for my wrap up. A couple of things I wanted to kind of mention are some of the statistics that I found after finishing up my Romance-A-Thon. So in total, I read 6 books. Total pages I read was 2,104 pages. That averages out to be 350.67. And the average rating was 3.9, which makes sense. I had 2 5 stars, 1 4 star, 1 3.5, and 1 3. So that's it for this video. Please be sure to leave me a comment on the books you've read this month if you participated in a Romance-A-Thon, Contemporary-A-Thon, or rather any readathon. Love to know what you guys have been reading. Please let me know any recommendations you have. Yeah, I'm totally open. I like finding new books and new series to read. And if you want to follow along with our channel, please subscribe. We post new videos every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, and you can click that little bell icon to be notified when we do post new videos. If you also want to follow along with our book club, the Serpent and Badger book club, head over to Goodreads and join that. We have our timeline up until June, I believe, of the books we're going to be reading. And you can also follow our individual Goodreads accounts as well as our individual and joint Instagrams. Everything will be linked below. Until next time, guys, bye!